Hey everyone, welcome to the first part of What If May was sponsored by Team Aqua. This is the first spin-off of Plus Ultraman and Ren & Charizard's What If Giovanni sponsored Ash. If you haven't caught up with that yet, go check it out, since our story begins shortly after part 2 of season 2. However, being a spin-off isn't the only exciting thing about this story, as I'm also being joined by my friend Dex Comics.
Hey everyone, I'm Dex Comics, and I'm super excited to be working on this brand new step for the GSA universe, alongside Ronin, Plus, and Dill. Like with GSA, parts will alternate between both our channels, meaning that part 2 will come out on my channel. Be sure to subscribe to both of us and turn on notifications so you don't miss out any parts to this story.
Let's get on with the story. Hoenn, a region of fertile land and pristine oceans. To call the place paradise would not be off base, and that is exactly what our troubled hero needs as he embarks on his vacation. Resting in his deluxe cabin aboard the SS St. Flower, Ash Ketchum knows he should be at peace, but his last encounter with Giovanni still rings in his ears. Every time he thinks he is free of the Team Rocket boss, Giovanni finds a new way to put him back under his thumb. Though as he watches the waves roll by, he swears that this will be the last time. Giovanni may have sent him on this trip, wanting to exert his power by making Ash come and go at his whim like some trained Growlithe, but he is going to make the most of it. And while he is out of the Viridian Gym Leader's sight, he is going to formulate a plan which will set him, his mum, and his friends free from Giovanni's grip once and for all. And speaking of schemes, one of the best schemers Ash knows happens to be in the very cabin with him. Turning his attention to the cabin's kitchenette, he finds Meowth stuffing his face with various snacks from the minibar. When Meowth senses Ash's eyes upon him, he turns round, and through an overstuffed mouth asks, "Smatter, boss? You want some of this?" Ash shakes his head, and as Meowth resumes his gorging, Ash asks him what he knows about Giovanni's business dealings and contacts in the Hoenn region. Meowth admits that Giovanni never mentioned that sort of stuff to him, Jesse, and James, but he does know for a fact that Giovanni has a few contacts in Hoenn. At least one of them is a big shot, the CEO of a major corporation that manufactures important gadgets, since they would often send through new gear to operatives. The Scratch Cat then racks his brain, coming up short but admitting that he's sure the company starts with D. Thankfully, this is enough to go on, and so pulling out a tourism guide to the region, Ash flips through it in search of the company. Though he finds no mention of such an organization in the list of tourist destinations, he does strike gold in the sponsorship section, stumbling upon the name of the Devon Corporation. Ash asks Meowth if that sounds familiar, and the Pokemon says that's the one. Ash comments that as luck would have it, the Devon Corp's headquarters is in Rustboro City, which, coincidentally, the ship docked in before coming to Kanto. The heavy emphasis he puts on the words luck and coincidentally suggests that it's anything but, and Meowth asks if his trainer thinks that Giovanni has placed Devon Corp's spies on the ship. Ash says it's probable, but no matter, since now they know the name of the game, they can counter-spy and see if they can find anything they can use for their own purposes. Meowth chuckles that Ash is as cunning as his mentor, but Ash doesn't see this as a compliment, and so tells Meowth to keep his eyes peeled, since if Giovanni has one set of spies, he might have others. Meowth salutes, then quips that he'll look for spies at the bottom of this packet of crisps, and then look inside this bottle of pop. Since he's such a devoted follower, he might even have to check for spies inside that fancy box of chocolate truffles when he's done. Chuckling under his breath, Ash says he can do that later. Right now he wants him to watch his back while he surveys the deck and gets some fresh air. Meowth whines that he hates the deck. Too much water up there. But when Ash gives him a look that says he's not messing around, the Scratch Cat scampers up onto his shoulders.
As the largest luxury liner in Hoenn, the SS St. Flower is more of a floating city than a ship, and Ash quickly finds himself getting lost among all the decks. Though he wanted to go up on deck, he somehow finds himself in the barrels of the ship in some snooty art gallery displaying an old painting titled Temple of the Sea. This isn't really Ash's speed, and for a moment he ruefully reflects on how he should have brought Misty, Brock, or even Silver with him on this trip, since though he'd never admit it, he'd come to rely on their sense of direction over the last few months. However, when Arceus opens a door, he opens a window, so to speak, and before long along, Meowth whacks his boss on the head with his tail and whispers in his ear that he's found an elevator, so they can just take that. Ash agrees, and when the elevator comes, he takes the place of a girl with 2 long tufts of brown hair poking out from under a bandana, who is getting out on this level. Once inside, all Ash has to do is press the button for deck, and in under a minute, the doors are swinging open to greet him with sea air and sunshine. Meowth holds on tighter to Ash's head up here, as a very unhappy look on the normal type's face every time a wave rises, especially high. Ash tells him to stop being such a scaredy cat, but is distracted when he comes across a number of battlefields laid out on the prow deck. Excitedly, he rushes over to find himself an opponent, and as soon as he finds a field where a young man is standing alone, Ash asks if he would like to have a battle, and the boy sneers that he supposes Ash will do. Through his accent, he's obviously Cantonian, so he's never even heard of a double battle, which is the only kind of battle that he's interested in right now. In the past, Ash would have throttled this kid, but for all his evils, Giovanni's tutelage has taught him discipline, so he instead amiably replies that he knows a bit about double battles. The kid scoffs that he doubts it since they're a Hoenn specialty, before demanding to know if Ash wants to have a double battle with him. Ash shrugs that he was looking for an opponent anyways, so let's see what this kid can do. At the boy's demand, Ash chooses first, and so wanting to show off that he's no novice, brings out his rival aces, Charizard and Crocodile. The boy is clearly caught off guard by such strong picks, and so he brings out his Zigzagoon and Poochyena, which look unbelievably amateurish in comparison. He then offers the boy a chance to back out, finding no pleasure in the idea of trouncing a weaker opponent, but the boy refuses, ordering Zigzagoon to use Tackle. However, when staring down the pseudo dragon and the sand croc, the tiny raccoon Pokemon runs the other way, hiding behind its trainer's leg, with Poochyena doing likewise. Seeing that he's not getting a battle here, Ash wishes the boy a good day, but before he can leave the field, another trainer approaches him, having seen the power of his Pokemon and wants to challenge him. After them is another trainer and another, with Ash's whole team getting a workout, which they greatly appreciate after being cooped up in their balls for so long. Finally, Ash is about to face his final opponent, a trainer with a Meowth wearing a feathered cap and boots. Smirking a little, he says he'll have his Meowth face Tyson, and since Meowth can't afford to speak in public, he can give no rebuttal as he is pulled off Ash's shoulder and placed on the field. Disgust at the Meowth in Boots' costume fills Meowth's face, but this quickly turns into anger when the other Meowth says something that's clearly meant to convey disrespect. Ash's Meowth then lunges at his counterpart with claws drawn, but is met with an Iron Tail, which brings the two felines to a stalemate. Breaking apart, Meowth next attempts a fake out, clapping its paws and thinking that the long range nature of a shockwave might be able to thwart the other. But in this, he is sadly mistaken, as Tyson's Meowth amply blasted away with a thunderbolt that snakes around the field and electrocutes Meowth. As Meowth slumps to the floor, Ash teases that maybe he needs to get his partner some boots and a little hat to make him fight better. This incenses the Scratch Cat, who raises to his feet, giving his trainer the evil lie, before resuming the offensive for the sake of his pride. The other Meowth is ready and so prepares to counter with an Iron Tail, but this is exactly what Ash's Meowth was hoping for, and so leaps out of the way at the last second, causing the Iron Tail to hit the dirt and send up a cloud of dust. This is all Meowth needs, and when he is sure the other Meowth is fully blinded, he pounces, tackling it to the ground and raising his claw for the finishing move. However, before this can land, a klaxon blares to life, and Ash tells Meowth to come back and check this out with him. Dutifully, the Scratch Cat clambers onto his boss's shoulder as Ash runs over to the source of the commotion, where a series of security guards have converged on the elevator he was using earlier. For a moment, there is stillness. Then the lift doors burst outward, propelled by a heavy torrent of water. Several of the security guards are knocked overboard by the doors, and those who aren't too dazed spot a girl on the back of a blue and orange Pokemon emerge from the elevator and charge headlong towards the back of the boat.
Even from behind, Ash recognizes those hair tufts from earlier, as well as what the girl has in her arms, the painting from the gallery. Wanting to know what this is all about, Ash gives chase, readying his Pokeballs in case it comes to a battle. Rounding a corner, Ash sees the girl now cornered by another group of guards, but without breaking a sweat, her blue and orange Pokemon slams its palm into the deck, causing it to rumble, before collapsing and sending the guards tumbling several stories down. The unknown Pokemon then leaps over the new gap, and after a running start, so does Ash. The sound of his landing alerts the girl to his presence, and with a grunt of annoyance, she demands to know why he's following her, and if he's been tailing her since they crossed paths in the elevator. Ash admits that he hasn't, and he just wants to know why she'd rob the ship and hurt all those guards. When she hears this last part, a slight wince crosses the girl's face, but then her steely determination returns, and she says it's none of his business, and if he doesn't leave her alone, he's going to get hurt too. Ash takes this as a challenge, and so brings out his Hitmonlee, who is eager to go around with the girl's Pokemon. The girl opens with a call for Hydro Pump, but Ash and Hitmonlee are ready, with Ash telling his friend to get over the attack and then close the distance. Hitmonlee takes this rather literally, leaping up and running across the attack, which thanks to its speed, coupled with the pressure of the water, it is able to cross without sinking. It then delivers a downward scissor kick to the other Pokemon's head, and as the blue and orange Pokemon lies there dazed, its trainer runs up to it, crying its name, which as it turns out is Swampert. Ash then steps closer so that he and Hitmonlee are standing over the girl and her Swampert, and when Ash speaks, it is in a kind voice, as he says that she really cares about her Pokemon, doesn't she? She could have run and left Swampert, but when it got hurt, she didn't think about escaping. All she thought about was its well-being. The girl nods, and so Ash tells her that no one who really loves Pokemon can be a bad person, so why doesn't she give back that painting, and everything will be alright. With an undercut of anguished urgency, the girl snaps back that it won't be alright. Her boss sent her to get this painting, so now she has to do it. This fills Ash with a series of conflicting emotions, as he tries to think of a way to resolve this, not wanting to forcibly take the painting back, after how much pain the thought is clearly causing the girl, but also being unwilling to allow the theft to carry on unabated. However, Meowth, who still remembers the desperation he felt as a grunt to please Giovanni, does the unexpected and pipes up. In something like a reassuring voice, he asks if he's right in guessing that her boss just wants to sell the painting. The girl nods, showing only the slightest surprise at a talking Meowth, and Meowth smirks that in that case, he has a deal for her that he thinks she's gonna jump at. He then deftly snatches Ash's wallet from his pocket using Thief, and holds it out to her, saying why doesn't she just take that instead of the painting? Sure, it's not as much as she might get for it, but with that potential payout comes a lot of risks. For one, she and her boss will have the Jennies on them day and night looking for the painting, and this will probably drive the price down, since anyone buying will also know they're buying trouble. Not to mention, this is all assuming they can actually find a buyer in the first place, since the market for clearly stolen art tends to be a small pool, and those who frequent it tend to be sketchy folk who might double-cross her and her boss, and just take the painting, making this whole endeavor pointless while lining someone else's pocket. Much smarter to take the certain payout, and walk away with a bit of cash and her freedom, while leaving the painting behind so she doesn't draw any heat. The girl seems to consider this for a moment, rising to her feet and reaching a hand out to take the wallet, as her grip on the painting seems to slacken. However, as the tips of her fingers touch the fabric of the wallet, Swampert opens its eyes and barks something in its deep voice. Meowth looks down, sharply telling it to butt out, but in doing so, he is forced to take his eye off the girl, and so doesn't notice as her facial expression hardens. Then with a motion as swift as Meowth's, she pulls the wallet out of his paw and takes off running towards the railing of the ship. Swampert does likewise, leaping overboard first, and as Ash yells at her to stop, the girl follows her Pokemon over the edge. There is only one splash, and as Ash and Meowth rush to look over the railing, they see the girl riding away on Swampert's back, painting under one arm and Ash's wallet clutched tight in the other hand. Furiously, Ash demands to know what Meowth was thinking bartering with his money, but the cat Pokemon nervously chuckles that hey, Ash should look on the bright side. At least this time when a girl stole his wallet, she went in the water rather than him. Ash lets out a frustrated exhale, then tells Meowth to hold on tight as he brings out Charizard and leaps onto its back. Swampert may be fast in the water, but nothing can compare to Charizard's speed in the air. And as Ash quickly overtakes the girl, he yells down at her to return his wallet and the painting now, or else.
Or else what, brat? A coarse male voice booms from behind, and as Ash spins around to look for the speaker, he is shocked to spot a submarine rising from the water behind him. The submarine, along with the people standing on top it, all bear the same symbol as that girl's bandana, and it doesn't take take a genius to figure out that they must be her getaway crew. Ash has Charizard perform an aerial turn to face the sub, but this brief moment of vulnerability is all the people on top need, as each one of them has their Pokemon at their side fire a water gun at Charizard. These attacks converge, dousing the fire lizard and doing such massive damage that it faints and consequently falls out of the air. Ash starts to sweat, knowing that if Charizard lands in the open ocean, it would be a death sentence, and so acting fast, he recalls his friend into his ball and takes the brunt of the landing upon himself. The force of hitting the water from that height knocks the air out of Ash, and for a moment he doesn't know which way is up. But remembering the SSN incident, he focuses and manages to break the surface. By now, the girl on the Swampert has closed the gap between them, and as she passes, she tosses Ash's now empty wallet onto the water. Ash's blood boils, and he wants to give chase, but he must tend to his Pokemon first. Most pressingly is Meowth, who is thrashing around crying that he can't swim. Paddling over, Ash picks up the scratch cap by the scuff of his neck and places it on his hat, causing the normal type to purr that Ash is a real pal. Next, he checks on Charizard's ball, and upon seeing that it definitely closed on time, lets out a sigh of relief. Unfortunately, this leaves him with no time to chase after the girl, who at this point has reached the sub and is being pulled on board by her colleagues. As she climbs into the hatch leading inside, her eyes meet with Ash again. And even at this distance, he thinks he sees the same conflicted look from the boat. But an instant later, she is gone, and as the submarine sinks below the waves, Ash returns his focus to getting to safety.
Inside the Team Aqua submarine, May lets out a sigh of relief. A few times there she had thought she was done, but luckily Swampert always had her back, and so with a smile, she scratches the mudfish behind the fins, making it rumble with delight. One of the grunts from up top then cuts in, saying that Archie wants to see her, and May feels her stomach sink. Marshalling her resolve, she acknowledges the grunt's message and returns Swampert to its ball before heading deeper into the bowels of the sub. Archie's quarters are lavish, to the point of being garish, with ostentatious decorations hanging from every available space. And May can't help but wonder if Archie's true motivation in sending her to collect the painting was so that he could keep it for himself. But in truth, Archie's motives don't matter to her. Their relationship is purely transactional, and as long as he gives her the help he promised, he can do whatever he wants with the painting. Laying it down on the big man's desk, along with Ash's money, May reports that the mission was a success, trying to keep her loathing for this man out of her face and tone. Archie, however, seems utterly chuffed to see her, smiling that yeah, it was. Whole thing went off pretty as a picture, even if he had to call in the cavalry at the end to get her butt out of some hot water. He then lets out a fond chuckle which May knows holds no genuine affection, as he teasingly adds that next time, she ought to be a bit more thorough with her casing of the joint. May protests that she was thorough, she just didn't think that the kid was a threat, and a cruel expression curdles the smile on the Aqua boss's face. He then lowers his voice so that May has to lean in to hear him, and smirks that in that case, she's either an idiot, or she's lying about doing her job. So which one is it? May says she just made a bad call, but Archie barks that wasn't one of the options. He then rises to his feet, using his considerable height to stand over the girl, as he repeats his question, is she stupid, or is she a liar? May pauses for a moment, then through gritted teeth says she guesses she's stupid. Archie sneers that's right, she's just a stupid little pretty thing. So next time, he's going to give her a mission more fitting for her skill set. He then turns his attention to the painting, smashing the frame with one of his ham-hock fists, and roughly tugging out the picture within, shredding the edges of the canvas as he does. He then flips it over and growls that it's not there. Struggling now to hide her disgust for him, May asks what isn't there, and Archie snaps that rumor had it there might be a map to the Temple of the Sea and Kyogre's resting place on the back of this picture, and he wanted to check before selling it. He then tosses it back onto the cracked frame and broken glass, telling May to sell it since now he knows it's worthless to him. The smallest hint of contempt trickles into May's voice as she asks if that is her next mission, but Archie sneers that no, her job will be to cover an upcoming contest at Rustboro Hall, since he has business going on in the nearby Petalburg Woods, and he wants all eyes on her, since it seems that's all she's good for, drawing attention. May nods her understanding, and Archie tells her to get lost, but warns that next time he sees her, she better not have that sulky look on her face, since it's high time she remembers that she needs him if she wants to find her kid brother or whatever.
A few hours later, Ash and Meowth arrive at the beach near Rustboro City. Thankfully, Psyduck has become more of a capable swimmer since the SSN incident, and so was able to tow them to land, even using some of its psychic abilities to bolster its muscles when it starts to get fatigued. However, as a Pokemon himself, continual exposure to psychic energy has not been kind to Meowth, and so his first action upon reaching dry land is to puke, while Ash teases him that maybe he should have gone easier on the minibar. When Meowth is done, he returns the Scratch Cat to his shoulders and heads up the nearest city in search of a Pokemon Center. While Charizard and the others are getting healed, Ash wonders if there's anywhere they should go from here. Since it'll be a while before the boat reaches this city, Ash decides in the meantime he'd like to go investigate that strange group, since he has a bad feeling they may prove to be troublesome again down the line. Meowth suggests they can go try Giovanni's contacts in the Devon Corporation, and with no better ideas, Ash agrees. And so he departs with only Meowth, feeling his other friends have earned their rest. As he passes through the town, Ash spots a gym with a rocky exterior, and this reminds him of Brock. Had he actually been here for vacation, he might have stopped in to challenge the gym leader to compare their skills to his friend, but he has more important business, so he keeps going until he finds a skyscraper bearing the name and insignia of the Devon Corporation. Stepping into the lobby, Ash approaches the front desk, and it is only at this moment that he realizes how utterly unprepared he is for this exchange. Looking to Meowth for advice, all the feline gives him in return is a shrug, which Ash interprets to mean wing it. Sighing that this is what he gets for following Meowth's plan, Ash clears his throat to get the receptionist's attention and asks to see Mr. Devon. The receptionist asks if he means Mr. Stone in a polite but undeniably patronizing voice, and Ash says that he does, and to tell him that he's here on special business from Giovanni. This means nothing to the receptionist, but Ash figures that since Giovanni is still to all the world a respectable gym leader, his name is safer to throw out there than Team Rocket. And if the Devon Corporation really is in his sponsor's pocket, then its leader would know the significance of that name. And just as he expected, within seconds of the receptionist calling the CEO's office and relaying Ash's message, the boy is told to take the elevator to the top floor where Mr. Stone will be waiting for him personally. Ash does what he is told, and when he reaches his destination, a small man with spiky white hair is there to greet him. The man politely asks the members of his staff to leave him and Ash alone to talk at once, and dutifully they do so. As soon as the last aide leaves the office, Stone blurts out that he knows he's running late on some parts Mr. Giovanni wanted, but some ruffians in the Petalburg woods have been waylaying travelers, and so he ordered his carriers to be extra careful not to be caught. If the rumors are to be believed, these thugs might actually be from Team Aqua or Magma. Ash says that he's not actually here about any parts. He was wondering if Mr. Stone knew anything about a group with a logo that looks like an A made of skull and crossbones. Mr. Stone sighs audibly and replies that he does. That is Team Aqua, who he mentioned earlier. Ash smiles that in that case, it seems that they have a common adversary, since he's looking for them. Mr. Stone repeats that though he can't confirm it, he suspects the people causing mischief in Petalburg Woods are Team Aqua. Maybe he should start there. And that way, if he finds the missing parts, he can deliver them to Mr. Giovanni personally. Ash says he'll get right on that, then turns to leave. But before he can go, Mr. Stone calls out that Ash didn't give him his name, and that it might be best to know it so he can tell Mr. Giovanni that they met and he's en route to retrieve the parts. Ash freezes for a moment, torn between giving a fake name and risking being called out, or giving his real name and exposing to Giovanni that he's been to the Devon Corporation, when he technically wasn't supposed to get off the boat. But then an idea hits him, and so he musters his best Giovanni impression. He turns around and says in a tone radiating enigmatic authority that if Stone needed to know his name, he would have already known it. It seems that this gambit has worked as Mr. Stone backs away, looking a little frightened, and although Ash feels bad for scaring an old man, he reminds himself that this guy is an ally of Giovanni, and so saunters back to the elevator, having no further business here at the Devon Corporation.
After retrieving his other Pokemon, Ash heads into the Petalburg Woods, and to his surprise finds that it's much larger than the Viridian Forest back home. Ash sends Furo up to do some aerial reconnaissance, and when she returns, Meowth translates that by her best guess, it would take them several days to search this place by foot. Knowing they don't have that sort of time, Ash brings out Charizard as well, telling them to scout around and see if they can find any sign of Team Aqua and the girl in the Swampert. The two flyers nod, then take off in opposite directions, while Ash continues his search on foot, having all his remaining Pokemon come out and help. This yields no results, and so when the sun is high in the sky, they break for lunch. As Ash and his friends are enjoying some of Brock's preserved travel snacks, a loud hum fills their little clearing. Then from behind some bushes, a beam of prismatic energy shoots out towards them. Ash tells his Pokemon to watch out, but this is too little too late for poor Gloom, who is sitting closest to the beam, and so before the little grass type can act, she is blasted forward into her bowl, ruining her lunch as it's smeared all over her face. Behind Ash, Meowth grimaces, knowing how upset this will make Gloom, and he is not wrong, as without orders, Gloom gets to her feet and faces the source of the disturbance. 4 green spectral tendrils then shoot from Gloom, snaking their way into the bushes and pulling out a Venomoth. Frantically, the bug poison type tries to break Giga Drain's hold, but even though the move isn't very effective, it does continuously sap Venomoth's vitality, making this challenging. Before Ash can make a decision as to whether he wants Gloom to stop or Meowth to join and interrogate the Pokemon, a cry from a little ways away draws his attention. A boy then bursts into the clearing and frantically pleads for Ash not to hurt his Venomoth, since it was just practicing Psybeam for the upcoming contest and its aim was a bit off. Ash looks confused, not being familiar with contests, and so the boy pulls out a small portable television and turns it on to show the rerun of a recent contest he'd been studying. At first, Ash thinks it looks interesting, though not really his cup of tea, until something piques his interest. The girl from the boat is one of the performers. Urgently, Ash asks who that is, and the boy shrugs that he thinks her name is May. She's an up-and-comer in the contest circuit, but rumor has it she is a super influential backer. Ash grimaces, thinking he knows exactly what that's like, before asking the boy if he knows when and where the next contest is. The boy grins that Ash is in luck, since there's one this afternoon right here in Rustboro Hall. He then leads the Cantonian along a forest path, and good to his word, a large building blossoms out of the trees. Ash thanks him for showing him the way, then heads inside. At the front counter, he asks if a competitor named May is here, and the receptionist says that she's already backstage. Ash smiles that this is perfect, then heads for the stage doors, only to be stopped by the receptionist, who says that only coordinators and their companions can go in before the contest, so unless he would like to wait until after the performance, he will have to enter the contest himself. Knowing that waiting will just give this May girl a chance to slip away again, he somewhat impatiently says that he'll enter, and so the receptionist prints him out a contest pass, asking what Pokemon he plans to enter with. Ash is unsure, having not really thought about such things, but the boy from earlier, who has now also entered, suggests why not use his Gloom, since its Giga Drain was not only powerful, but also looked quite impressive. Ash sighs that he guesses so, and when he and Gloom are registered for the Rustboro contest, he heads backstage, while grumbling as the boy laughs nervously. It immediately becomes clear to Ash that he may be a little underdressed, as his new friend in here among the small minority not currently adorned in some kind of flashy outfit. This does, however, make the task of locating May a bit easier, since during the video, she was wearing her usual attire, suggesting that our hero can discount any of the girls in elaborate outfits. Sending Meowth to one end of the dressing room while he scans the other, the pair begin searching for May. However, when they meet in the middle, neither have seen any sign of her. Ash wonders if she might be in a costume this time after all, but then his new friend from the forest taps him on the shoulder and points to a large television screen mounted on the wall. May is there, and it seems that she is doing something called an appeal. Ash goggles at this, and so the boy, who he comes to learn is named Chaz, tells him that this is the first stage of a contest, asking if he really didn't know that. Ash reminds Chaz that he didn't even know about contests before today, and so pinching the bridge of his nose, Chaz gives a brief rundown on how contests work with their appeal and battle rounds. Ash grins a little at the sound of a battle round, but Chaz warns him that to get there, he'll have to pass his appeal, and he'd better think of a performance, since according to the program, he's next. Ash gulps, as moments later a stagehand gestures for him to follow her to the wings, so he can make his entrance. Ash thanks Chaz for his help, and the other boy wishes him good luck as he is led away.
By now, May is taking her bow, and for a moment Ash considers simply cornering her the second she comes off stage. But to his dismay, she exits from the other side of the stage as he is told to go on. Suddenly shoved in front of the crowd, his mind quickly blanks for a second, as he recognizes that this is technically now the most amount of people he's ever been the center of attention from, since he's yet to compete in his first league. Breathing in deeply, he releases Gloom and smiles down at her, before quoting Meowth's favorite plan of action, winging it. However, similar to him, his shy friend is quickly overwhelmed by the masses and hides behind his legs as the announcer quips that it seems Ash is trying to appeal to the judges with the cuteness of the shy Pokemon. However, he ignores this and drops to Gloom's level to reassure her, promising that no matter what, he is here with her. Nothing bad will happen, no matter how she does. And above all else, even if Gloom herself and the whole world disagrees with him, Ash truly thinks Gloom was beautiful. As his grass type peeks her head to make eye contact, he smiles warmly as she finally nods, summoning enough courage to face the crowd. The announcer then offers the newbie coordinator leeway by saying that their appeal round has just now began, earning Ash and Gloom's thanks, as Ash picks up Gloom and tosses her high as he confident calls for a pretty poison, and just to follow his first instinct. As the shiny purple powder begins to be produced, the crowd gasps as Gloom begins to spin at such a high speed. The powder creates a perfect ring of purple mist around the trainer and Pokemon that just barely catches the contest hall's lights enough to sparkle, giving Ash another idea as he catches his friend and tells her to use Moonblast, but just to hold it instead of firing it. Dutifully, Gloom does so, even as she hears snickers and jeers from the crowd. They are quickly replaced by oohs, ahs, and squeals of excitement, as a vibrant fairy energy that gives the poisonous mist-covered stage and Gloom a strangely alluring ambience. Finally, encouraged by a good reaction, Ash decides to gamble it all on Chaz's suggestion, and calls for Gloom to finish it up with Giga Drain. His friend strains to balance two moves at once, but as if commanding a better eye for the aesthetic task than her trainer, Gloom produces the light green tendrils. She twists them together, and she pushes herself up, creating a tall pedestal-like vine, which gives the illusion that Gloom is a mystical and rare flower of a dangerous enchanted forest from a storybook according to one of the judges. Sweat dropping, as none of this had been intentional, and it had been more so due to Gloom's sheer talent and beauty. Ash bows and takes advantage of the situation to work the crowd into showering Gloom with a ferocious round of applause as she lowers herself back down to the ground. Tears well up in the grass type's eyes, and watching from the monitor in the dressing room, Meowth also has to wipe a bit of moisture from his eyes as he feels a great deal of pride in his friend, along with the sense of guilt lightening on his shoulders. May, having clocked the creature rare to Hoenn, along with his trainer, takes a keen interest in the sign of solidarity, and thinks back to Ash's attempt to defuse their conflict back on the cruise. A bit more guilt weighs down on her, but she pushes this emotion aside as she had done so many times before. Briefly, she considers running since she doesn't know that Ash is here for her specifically. She is cognizant enough to know that if they run into each other, it could spell trouble, as he might expose her as a thief from the ship. However, Archie had told her to stay and act as a distraction, and despite how much she hates him, she does as she's told, as he remains her only source of information on where Max is, so she cannot afford for him to cast her aside as something no longer of use, like he did with that painting. And so, with her mind made up, she attempts to blend into the crowd of the other coordinators when Ash returns to the dressing room with the beaming Gloom. Unfortunately for May, she happens to sit beside Chaz, who calls out to Ash that he found May. The girl freezes, as this is all it takes for for Ash and Meowth to close the distance between them and glare down at her. Trying to keep her cool, May disdainfully asks what Ash wants from her. If it's his money, it's long gone. Ash replies that he just wants to talk, since she seemed really troubled back on the boat. In spite of herself, May's expression softened slightly at this. After hardening her heart for so long against the cruelty of her boss, she had almost forgotten what a genuine connection felt like. Ash can sense he's making inroads, and so presses a little further, saying that if his instincts about her are right, they may have more in common than she thinks, and maybe he can help her. For the briefest moment, May honestly considers coming clean with this guy and asking for help, but then looks behind Ash as the screen flashes, revealing the matchups for the battle round. Hardening her heart once more, May points out to Ash that they've been matched against each other. So how about they settle this with a battle? If he wins, she'll talk, but if she wins, he has to leave her alone. Ash agrees, figuring that battling is where he shines, and so the pair shake on it, before being called back on stage as the first match is due to begin. Ash and May square off on the battlefield, and in accordance with the Hoenn contest rules, use the same Pokemon from their appeal stage, those being Swampert and Gloom. Ash immediately goes on the offensive with Giga Drain, figuring that if Swampert was a water type like he suspects, the move will be super effective on it. May, it seems, has the same thought as she has her partner leap back, avoiding the ethereal green tendrils. And to Ash's surprise, on the big screen above him, his points go down. May taunts that Ash isn't familiar with contest, is he? This isn't a standard battle. In contest battles, the styleness of a move counts more than the power, and failure to deliver a satisfying conclusion to a routine is harshly punished. She then tells Swampert to use Earthquake and Hydro Pump together. The Mudfish obeys, slapping the ground so hard that a fissure appears, then spitting water into it with such great force that the water rises back out of it, resembling a blade. As the fissure rapidly advances, the blade of water continues to ride high, and when it hits the nervous Gloom, it takes damage from both hits, one after another. Gloom then lands on its back, and being largely spherical, it can't get up. Each failed attempt costs Ash more and more points. So when May calls for Swampert to finish off Gloom, the boy is down to less than a quarter of his starting total. Swampert stalks over and raises a heavy paw to slam down on Gloom's face. But here, Ash sees an opening where most others would see defeat, and so he tells Gloom to use Giga Drain to wrap around Swampert's wrist and to hoist itself up. Gloom does so, and at point blank range, Swampert can't avoid the quad effective attack, recoiling and writhing as it tries to tear itself free from the tendrils sucking up its vitality. This retreat pulls Gloom back on its feet, and so pressing their advantage, Ash has Gloom use Pretty Poison. A puff of toxic glitter coats the Mudfish, and as it howls, May's points take a nasty hit. Ash then calls for a Moonblast to end things, but as the fairy aura is charging, Swampert finally breaks free of Giga Drain and fires off a Mud Shot, which hits the blast and causes it to quite literally blow up in Gloom's face. As the grass type tumbles backwards, Ash loses the last few points he had, and so May is declared the winner of this match, and at a most fortuitous indeed, as seconds later, Swampert faints from the power of Gloom's Giga Drain, as both trainers are then sent backstage, so Chaz can have his contest battle. Ash turns to leave, sighing that a deal's a deal, but he hopes that whatever's troubling May turns out for the best. May is stunned by this earnestness and goes against her every instinct by calling for him to wait. Ash looks back and May says that she'll tell him everything, although not right now as the contest hall is too exposed. He smiles back that he'll be happy to wait since he was beginning to see the appeal of contest. In the end, the final match comes down to May versus Chaz, and May comes out on top. Afterwards, Ash bids Chaz farewell and meets May back in the clearing he stopped for lunch earlier.
After a slightly awkward pause, May explains that she wasn't always a Team Aqua member. Up until recently, she lived in Petalburg City, not far from here, with her mother, father, and little brother Max. Her dad Norman was the gym leader, and so she and Max always grew up around Pokemon, with Max's dream to one day become a trainer and eventually the Petalburg City gym leader. However, a few months ago, while her parents were on a cruise, a group of criminals attacked the ship, and in the scuffle, it sunk. Dozens were lost at sea, including her parents. Officially, Team Aqua and Team Magma were blamed for the attack, though both claimed innocence, blaming the other. And if she's honest, May suspects that at least in this, Team Aqua isn't lying, since though they will commit robberies, they wouldn't sink a ship, if only to avoid the ecological damage it would do to the Pokemon living in that section of the ocean. Max, however, had other ideas, believing that as it was a crime committed on the high seas, Aqua must have been the culprits. This hatred for Team Aqua, coupled with his grief, changed Max, and not for the better. He became sullen, withdrawn, and when he heard that Team Magma were looking for new recruits to fight Team Aqua and their aquatic evil, he jumped at the chance. Obviously, she tried to stop him, but since neither of them had any Pokemon, there wasn't much she could do when the men from Magma came to escort Max away. Last she heard, he stole a Torchic from Professor Birch, though even that is hard to believe, as the professor was their dad's old friend, and it's not like Max to do something like that. There is pain in May's voice as she finishes her story, and Ash lays a hand on the girl's shoulder, saying that he's so sorry, but he doesn't understand how this led to her getting involved with Team Aqua. May admits that she didn't plan to at first, but from the moment Max left, she knew she had to find him and bring him home, and like it or not, the best way to find out about Team Magma would be to approach their mortal enemy. Unfortunately, Team Aqua aren't the type who give anything freely, let alone something as valuable as information, and so an arrangement had to be reached. Ash sighs that she agreed to do their dirty work in exchange for information on Max, didn't she? May nods solemnly, though there is determination in her voice as she says that she had to, since she will do anything to protect her family.
The reluctant apprentice of Giovanni commends such a noble thought, but then points out that it begs the question of if May's parents would agree that it was worth compromising on her values. However, this causes May to snap at him to never speak of her parents in a way that, to her great horror, reminds her of Archie. She quietly mumbles an apology as Ash waves it off, reminding her of his statement that they share more in common than she may think. He then begins to regale her on the tale of his last 8 months, and his own similar burden, bringing his new friend up to speed and causing her to feverishly apologize for ruining his vacation meant to get away from his ordeal. This, however, causes both Meowth and Ash to laugh as they admit chasing her, competing in contests, and learning he, Silver, and Richie weren't alone had been much more worthwhile than any stuffy boat ride could ever be. He then gets on his feet, saying that he's decided he's gonna help her get her brother back. May asks why, and with a grim look, Ash states he knows what it's like to have a monster use the fate of someone he loves to control him, and if he can help her get out from under Archie's thumb, then he'll at least have left Hoenn better than he found it. Plus, he owes Archie and his cronies some payback for hurting Charizard. May asks how Ash plans to achieve this, and he grins that her robbery aboard the SS St. Flower is probably big news by now. And if Team Aqua keeps tabs on Team Magma, then it's certain that Team Magma will be doing the same with them. So if they know that a Team Aqua member robbed the ship, then they would probably know someone tried to stop her, and maybe would even know about the encounter with the submarine. May still isn't sure what Ash is getting at, so he elaborates that based on all that, Team Magma would feel safe in the assumption that Ash is no friend to Team Aqua, and as the enemy of their enemy, that would make Ash Team Magma's friend. May's eyes go wide as she states that Ash plans to contact them, with Ash nodding and saying that he's gonna propose a meetup to discuss him joining Team Magma. He's also gonna specifically request to negotiate with Max so that when he turns up, May can reveal herself and finally get a chance to talk with him. May May thanks Ash profusely, but the young man says that he's gonna need her help with this, since he doesn't know how to contact Team Magma. So if she has any idea on how Max did it, that would make things considerably easier. May suggests that he could have possibly contacted them online, so if they can return to the gym where she and Max lived, they should be able to go through his computer and find some contact info there. May says that's a great idea, although May warns him that it'll take him a while to walk all the way to Petalburg, since these forests are huge. Ash says not to worry, and then yells at the top of his lungs for Firo and Charizard to come to him. Moments later, the loyal lizard and the attentive avian land in the clearing, ready to receive their next orders. Charizard flares his nostrils that small flames leak out when he sees May, clearly remembering her from the submarine incident. But Ash tells him that May is his friend, although for safety's sake, maybe she'd be better off riding Firo. May splatters a little at the word ride, but Ash, who has already hoisted himself onto Charizard's back, says that it's easy, and that Firo wouldn't let her fall since though she looks tough, she's the most caring Pokemon he's ever met. May gulps and then says that if it can help her get Max back, she'll do it. And so throwing her leg over Firo's bony neck allows her to be carried up into the sky after Ash.
The flight is a brief one, but at the cost of travelling at extreme speeds. Aside from some windswept hair, Ash is fine, though Meowth looks more than a little queasy when they land. May on the other hand is pale, with her brown hair tufts standing on end, and as she disembarks, she states in a rather shaky voice that she thinks she'll stick to riding Swampert from now on. Curiously, Ash asks how she and Swampert met, since he's pretty sure she said she didn't get it until after Max left. May nods, admitting originally she didn't want to be a Pokemon trainer at all, and just wanted to travel the world, but after she heard what Max had done to Professor Birch, she knew that she didn't have a choice in the matter. After all, Max had only been so successful in his theft because he lulled Birch into a false sense of security by preying on his familiarity with their family, and even lying that he was picking up the starter for his older sister. Ash sighs that she still blames herself for that, doesn't she? And May admits that after her parents died, this was when Max needed her the most, but she was too lost in her own pain. So in a way, everything he does with Team Magma is her fault, since if she'd just been the sister he needed, he might not have fallen in with them. May then brings out her tanky partner and wraps her arms around its neck, admitting that at first she only chose it because it would give her a way to stop Max's Torchic, and she was initially very put off by its appearance. But over time, those things became absolutely meaningless to her, as she came to know the real Swampert, who has been a loyal and bold companion from the start, saving her life over and over without hesitation. So despite the circumstances of their meeting being truly dire and negative, they at least had a silver lining. Swampert rumbles happily in agreement, and May giggles as it shimmies along happily on all fours, something Ash assumes looked far cuter when this hulking creature wasn't quite so large and threatening in its appearance. It does however cause him to laugh along with her while musing about the concept of his own starter. Due to feeling a sense of trust in May, thanks to their similar circumstances, Ash opens up a little, stating that he's happy she has that view of things. He then sighs that Sandile, who was his official starter, was actually conditioned to be a weapon rather than a friend, since it was Giovanni himself who gave it to him, and from what it later learned, his contemporaries had slightly varied, but similar issues produced through this twisted sponsorship. Laughing a little, he adds that his first capture didn't go much better, seeing as the first time he met Firo, she rightfully tried to turn him into a pincushion for harming her flock of babies. Nowadays though, Firo is the biggest worrywart of his crew. In fact, he'd been thinking of having her stay with his mum when this business with Team Rocket is over, due to how similar they've become. He then suddenly grows quiet, and both May and Meowth peer closely at him, very obviously enthralled by his story, even if the latter is already well aware of this last bit at least. After what can only be called a moment of deep contemplation, Ash orders Meowth to cover his ears, causing the cat to tilt his head in confusion, before shrugging and doing so, as Ash looks back to May and rolls his eyes, as a soft, genuine smile graces her face. He then admits that it wasn't until he and Meowth got thrown together that his team actually began to come together. The benefit of a talking Pokemon in general was ridiculously helpful, especially in helping Sandile to grow past his trauma and mend the gap between him and Firo. But beyond that, Meowth was weak, like Ash was when he began his journey. Both Sandile and Firo were so far ahead of him, and it took help from Ash and the rest of the team to catch up. Ever since then, while it's undeniable that Crocodile leads his team and holds the title of his strongest, Meowth has been the heart of his team, and that's the core of what a good starter Pokemon does. From his side, Meowth grins that for what it's worth, Ash ain't a half-bad trainer either, causing the young man to say that he thought he told him to cover his ears in a faux threatening tone that all assembled can tell is a joke. Chuckling, the Stretch Cat replies that what can he say? He's got big ears, so even when he covers them, certain things have a way of slipping in. Even with this explanation, Ash looks unimpressed, but May laughs, saying that in a way, Ash reminds her of Max, since he too used to really love Pokemon and spent every waking moment thinking about them and the adventures they'd have together. Her smile then develops a sad tinge, and Ash lays a hand on her shoulder, saying that he and Max will be able to have a long chat about Pokemon when they get him back. Night has fallen by the time Ash, May, and Meowth make it to Petalburg proper, and when they approach the gym, it is plain to see that several months of neglect have not done it any favours. Pulling out a spare key hidden behind a Walmer pail, May unlocks the gym, and so the trio head inside, with Ash and Meowth heading straight for Max's bedroom in the computer. May stands alone in the main room for a moment, each sight causing memories to rush back to her in a confusing mix of joy and grief. The wall where their mum used to measure her and Max's heights, the crude scribbled drawing she'd made for her father when he became city gym leader, still displayed prominently after all these years. All of this was her home. Was. Without her parents and Max, what is this place really? Just a building? Or can the memories of love soaked into the very foundations of a place make it home, even when those whose love made this place so special are gone? May doesn't know. Though there is one thing she holds certain, clutching it close to her heart, that one day she and Max will be able to call this place home again. One day, when she has made this awful situation right. From another room, Ash's excited voice calls out to the girl, telling her to come quick, since he's found how Max contacted Team Magma. A little cattily, Meowth replies that technically he was the one who hacked the kid's computer and went through his history. Ash just sat there saying, click the thing, every time something new popped up. Teasing that for a guy who can give such creative directions in battle, navigating technology is not his strong suit. Laughing a little, Ash replies that he guesses that's true, though that's what he has Meowth for, patting the cat on the head before telling May that he's ready when she is. May gives the go-ahead, saying that if Magma works anything like Aqua, they'll send a few operatives, so she'll also contact Archie and ask for some backup in case things get dicey.
Max, would you kindly hand me that fossil? Butler asks within the bowels of the machine he is tinkering with. Eagerly, Max complies, taking a break from playing with Butler's Dusclops to fetch a resin casing, which contains a fragment of what the pair believe to be a Groudon fossil. The Team Magma scientist thanks him for this, and with a fond smile says that he's so glad Maxine trusted the boy to work with him. A measured voice from the doorway then replies, how could he not, when Max is one of the brightest recruits their team has had in years. Max spins around and sees the Team Magma boss. Max runs over to him, gushing that their machine is almost ready, and when it is, they should be able to try and revive Groudon through the fossil fragment. Maxie gives a lipless smile in return, telling the pair that they've done exceptional work, before bending down so that he and Max may speak face to face. Cupping the boy's cheek, he asks if Max is adjusting well to the lab, and apologizes for pulling him off field missions for the moment. He simply felt that his brilliant mind could be put to better use in the lab. Max chuckles that it's alright, grinning from ear to ear, and saying that Mr. Butler has been a great partner. Maxie says that he's glad to hear it, since he has a mission for the two of them, that he can only assign to those he trusts implicitly, due to it being of the utmost importance. Butler hastily pulls himself from the machine to bow before his boss, vowing to not let him down, while Max grins that Maxie knows he can count on him. Maxie nods approvingly, though the faintest hint of distaste flickers through his eyes when he looks at Butler, and he tells Max to follow him so he can give him further information on the mission. Max happily follows behind his mentor, and soon the pair are alone in the corridor.
Placing a hand on the boy's back, Maxie smiles that since joining them only a few months ago, Max's rise has been truly meteoric, and he is immensely proud of the dedication Max has shown to Team Magma. A darkness fills Max's face as he breathes that Team Aqua killed his parents, so he'll do anything to stop them. Maxie nods soberly, and in a voice smooth as silk, says that what happened to Norman and Caroline was truly a tragedy. But through the righteous efforts of Team Magma, They will dry up the wretched sea and create a world full of land for people and Pokemon alike to enjoy, where nothing like what happened to Max's parents can ever happen again. Max nods, and so the pair step into Maxie's office. When the door is closed, Maxie bids Max to sit and tells him that this mission is unlike anything that he has ever embarked on before. A young man has reached out to Team Magma, expressing a desire to ally with them. By all accounts, he should be a valuable asset, having recently attempted to thwart a brazen art theft committed by a Team Aqua thug. Max states that the Aqua member in question was his sister, though the way he says it is not a reproach to his mentor, but more like he is trying to distance himself from May. He then adds that May's always been selfish, only ever caring about herself and her wants, so it makes sense that she'd fall in with Team Aqua. Maxie smiles that no one blames him for his sister's faults, and that he is nothing like her, since he has devoted himself to a selfless cause. He then lays a hand fondly on the boy's head, and says that he is proud of Max for having the courage to cut himself off from such negative influences, since such an action could not have been easy. Max says nothing here, though his expression speaks volumes. Pain is clearly there to say that it was difficult, but laced among that pain is a smouldering anger, a resentment for May, and everything about her which allows him to push through the pain. The keenly analytical eyes of Maxie read all of this, and the hint of a genuine smile touches the corner of his mouth. From the moment he laid eyes on him, he knew exactly what this broken boy was. A malleable puppet who would do anything to fill the void his father left behind. By feeding him scraps of affection, Maxie has rebuilt this pathetic child in his own design, and now he even eschews the last of his family to avoid Maxie's displeasure. What a perfect little fanatic. A wan smile then crosses the Magma boss's face, and he repeats that the young man who stood against their enemy in Team Aqua should be a valuable asset. However, an associate from Kanto has informed Maxie that the boy is in fact an enemy, and so Max's true mission will not be to recruit him, but to eliminate him when he least expects it. Max nods, all business, as he vows to do whatever it takes to protect Team Magma. Maxie smiles that he knows Max will, and that is why he knows he can trust him, because they are kindred spirits. He then pats the boy on the back and tells him to inform Butler of their task and have him assemble a team of grunts. For unfortunate official reasons, the scientist will technically be in charge of this mission, though with a sly smile and a wink, Maxie says that they will both know who is really in charge. Smiling broadly at this level of trust and affirmation from his mentor, Max leaves the office, with Dusclops appearing behind him to startle the boy, before both have a hearty chuckle. When Max is gone, Maxie allows his jovial expression to stiffen back to his usual stern demeanor as he picks up his phone. On the other end, a rich baritone asks if Maxie has taken steps to eliminate their mutual problem, and in a forced tone of neutrality, Maxie replies that he has, and as always, Team Magma is at Giovanni's disposal.
It's almost dawn when the whirring of a helicopter fills Ash and May's ears. Neither have slept a wink, though there's still some adrenaline pumping through their veins, that this is hardly an issue. In the next room, a contingent of Team Aqua grunts lie in wait, though May told them not to show themselves unless trouble arises, lest they spook their quarry. Ash isn't sure if May has told him what their mission actually is, though at this point it doesn't matter, since his plan is simple: give May and Max a chance to talk face to face and deal with anyone who stands in the way of that. Stepping onto the lawn outside of the gym with Meowth on his shoulder, Ash thanks the Team Magma contingent for coming, introducing himself and his partner in the process. Most of the Magma group does likewise, with the sole exception being their leader, a purple-haired man in a white suit who scowls at Ash before pulling a pair of high-tech looking goggles out of his pocket and putting them on. Finally, the youngest member of the group introduces himself, and as Ash expected, it's Max. Ash then gestures to the red-clad group to follow him inside, though Max says he'd rather talk out here until Butler has finished his thermal scan. Ash and Meowth sweat drop this, knowing exactly what the Team Magma scientists will find. And this is all the confirmation Max needs, having used his keen sense for tactical analysis to know that this was a trap from the get-go. Smugly, the boy gloats that Ash should just bring out his allies already and save the thermal scanner some battery power, since he knows what this is. A hint of sadness to his smile, Ash says that he very much doubts that Max does, and urges the boy to come inside with him alone, since he promises it's not a trap, he just has someone who really wants to see him. Max scoffs, that's impossible, everybody who he cares about is either dead or in Team Magma. But in a small voice, May says, not everyone, as she steps outside, hands raising in a gesture of surrender. She then gives her brother a faint smile and an awkward wave, saying that she's missed him, and asking him to come inside so they can talk. However, she doesn't get too far with this request before a blaze kick from Max's Blaziken almost takes her head off. On the other side of the lawn, Max is seeing red, and as his Blaziken goes for another shot, Max begins to scream over and over for it to get her, as Ash has Meowth try to intervene. May does her best to duck and weave, but eventually one kick manages to connect with her chest, just as she leaps back to deplete its force, sending her flying through the doorway and deeper into the gym. Ash calls out his friend's name, turning to help her, but from the shadows, Butler has his Dusclops burst forth and grab Ash in a bear hug. The purple-haired scientist then promises Max that he and their allies can handle Ash, so just try to go focus on finishing off that Aqua girl. Max thanks his friend, and then he and Blaziken rush inside after May.
When the boy is gone, Butler tuts that he doesn't know what Ash did to rub Giovanni the wrong way, but it seems the Mafia boss has put out a hit on him, so it's the end of the road for the kid. Nothing personal, it's just business. He then calls for a curse, and Ash screams as he feels like a giant nail is being driven into his brain. This is too much for Meowth to bear, and so he breaks rank to aid his own trainer, pouncing at Dusclops. Claws extended, he channels dark-type energy through them just like Mewtwo taught him, and cuts deeply into Dusclops' back, dealing super effective damage thanks to Night Slash. As Dusclops recoils from the gaping wound in its back, Ash manages to break free of its grip, and thanks his partner for the assist. Meowth grins that he was just doing his job, but it might be a good idea to bring out a few of the heavy hitters, since that trick isn't gonna work twice. Ash nods, and as he brings out his two strongest battlers, the Team Aqua grunts burst out the door, finally turning the battle in Ash's favor. Or so it would seem.
Moments after being called forth, Charizard roars in pain as is struck in the back by a water gun. Rounding on the Aqua group, Ash demands to know what that was for, and with a slimy smirk, the strongest among them says that Giovanni also told their boss to dispose of Ash for him. However, instead of shock or fear, Ash laughs in a way that chills the grunts to their core, saying that he knew there'd be some reprisal for getting off the SS St. Flower, but he figured his sponsor would know better than to rely on third-rate losers like Team Aqua or Magma. This sets the villain and his team members off, so they have their Pokemon rush Ash from either side. Unfortunately for them, Charizard and Krookodile are itching to battle, and so go back to back, prepared to halt the onrushing tide of foes. Charizard takes on the Aqua Pokemon due to having a score to settle, and ignites both its fist with crackling energy. As the various water types close in, he dispatches of each one of them with a single Thunder Punch that leaves their trainers paralyzed with shock and horror. Krookodile meanwhile squares up with his fellow Dark and Ground types, deciding not to take what it considers the easy route like Charizard and using super effective moves. It instead chooses to show off its superior mastery of its types to dominate the Magma Mons. Crunch drops Butler's Mightyena, as well as the weaker Mightyenas that the grunts throw at him, and when it comes time to face the ground types, Krookodile's increased power due to Moxie is enough for a single Stone Edge to blow them all away. The battle is swift as it is decisive, and as the shattered Magma and Aqua members fall to their knees, they beg for mercy. Chuckling wickedly, Meowth asks his boss if they should show a mercy after all they've done, but Ash snarls that they're not worth their time. He grabs one of the Aqua grunts and asks if May was in on the plan to betray him. The grunt vigorously shakes his head, saying that Archie only got the call after May had requested their help. Ash says he figured it would be something like that. However, if his dealings with Giovanni has taught him one thing, it's that assuming someone's intentions will always end badly. With a snap, Meowth flickers to his shoulder in a blur of motion before zipping back to the opposite one. In the next instant, the Aqua grunt that Ash is interrogating nearly wets himself as he is suddenly left the only member of his team who is still conscious. The near 11-year-old glowers in a way Archie wishes he could, as he tells the grunt that he'll be leaving a message for May, and if he were to tell anybody else, he'll make sure that Meowth comes back to pay him a visit. The cat grins demonically, and the grunt nods frantically in cooperation. When the message is relayed, the grunt is told to play dead with his friends, as Ash recalls Crocodile and mounts up on Charizard. Giving the Petalburg gym a final glance, the boy whispers a wish of luck to his friend. Meowth joins his trainer and in a curious voice asks where they're going now. Ash doesn't even look at him, and in a determined voice replies, home.
Meanwhile, inside the gym, Max and Blaziken have finally caught up to May, who is at one end of the gym's battlefield with Swampert standing guard between them. Childishly, Max taunts that he thought May just wanted to talk, bitter bile leaking out of every word. May pleads that she does, so why don't they put their Pokemon away and talk like they used to? Max, however, scoffs at the notion, jeering that May's saying that now, but that's just so that when his guard's down, she can betray him, just like she betrayed their family by joining Team Aqua. May says that's not true. She only joined Team Aqua to find him and bring him home, but Max doesn't want to hear it, calling his sister a liar, and declaring that she made her choice when she became an enemy of Team Magma, since that also made her an enemy of his. Hurt fills May's eyes, and she asks what's wrong with Max. This isn't like him. He sounds like he's been brainwashed. But Max snarls she would say that, trying to confuse him with her lies, when for the first time Maxie has shown him the truth. Now it is May's turn to show anger, and she snaps that Maxie is a monster, and he's manipulating Max. But Max screams at her to shut up, that she doesn't know Maxie like he does, and that Maxie is helping him to achieve his dream, to become the strongest champion ever, so he can protect Hoenn, just like Dad always wanted. In contrast to Max, who has gotten more loud and histrionic, May's voice has gotten softer and more resolute, and with certainty, she tells Max that their father wouldn't have wanted this for him. If anything, he'd be ashamed of what Max has become.
This pushes the boy over the edge, and with a beast-like roar, he orders Blaziken to unleash a Blaze Kick barrage. At once, the flaming avian's feet ignite, and with a caw, it rushes at May. However, Swampert, ever the loyal defender, is ready to counter, and so launches a Hydro Pump, which sends the Fire Flying type back into the wall. Max, too angry to realize his poor matchup, screech for his partner to get up, and the stoic chicken does as it's told, rising to his feet and staring at the opponent with a steely glare. It runs in again, and like before, Swampert uses Hydro Pump. However, Max is too smart to let himself be fooled by the same trick twice, and so calls for Blaziken to use a series of Blaze Kicks to turn the water into steam and keep going. Feet now blazing, Blaziken leaps upwards and deals a flurry of kicks to the torrent of water so fast that it looks like a blur to those watching. As Max says, this evaporates the Hydro Pump and allows one kick to connect with Swampert's jaw, sending it crashing backwards. Max then hastily presses his advantage, telling Blaziken to strike Swampert so hard it'll never get up. But May refuses to allow her downed friend to be hurt any further, tackling it out of the way as Blaziken's flaming foot soars inches above their heads, colliding with one of the wall hangings behind them. This only angers Max further, not only because of his failure, but because in his eyes, May just confirmed that she cares more about that evil Team Aqua Swampert than she ever did about her family. Bellowing at the top of his lungs to try again, Max is oblivious to the consequences of his last attack, only having eyes for his much hated sister. Blaziken dutifully obeys, standing over the prone Swampert and May, and raising a fiery foot to stomp on them as if they were nothing more than Durants. However, at the last second, Swampert's eyes spring open, and in a deep rumble, it belches a Hydro Pump which Blaziken is able to avoid. The Hydro Pump then bursts a hole in the burning roof. Wait, burning roof?
Looking around, May sees that the wall-hanging Blaziken set alight has now spread all over the wall and ceiling, with the fire now spreading to the other walls. In her preoccupation with saving Swampert, she entirely missed it, but now has her mudfish friend turn his attention to extinguishing the blaze. That is until a blaze kick to the side of the head sends Swampert crashing into a wall. Rounding on her brother, May furiously asks Max what the heck's wrong with him. She's trying to put the fire out and save their lives, but Max doesn't even seem to hear her anymore, instead just calling for another blaze kick to finish Swampert off, while he stalks close to his sister, with malice in his eyes. The firefighting type nods, and leaps once more at its prey, but is stopped when May has Swampert catch it with a surprise punch to the gut that sends the Kiki-Avian soaring backwards and through the opposite wall, just as Max himself lunges towards her, trying to use the surprising amount of strength he'd built up to overpower his older sister. Between the fire and the sudden destruction of 2 load-bearing walls in a short span of time, the burning ceiling finally collapses on itself, spreading fire throughout the room and forcing May and Max to split off from each other. Rushing to her partner's side, May asks if it's alright, and when Swampert nods, she pleads for it to help her put out the fire. Swampert does its best, but by now the blaze is too widely spread to be put out by one Pokemon alone. As horrific shrieks of pain fill May's ears, she knows that the greenhouse where her family kept their Pokemon has caught fire, and so rushes there with Swampert by her side. Bursting through the gym's back door, May takes the quickest route she can to the greenhouse, but it's already too late, as the once verdant dome is now a giant fireball, from which no cries now emerge. Looking back, May sees that the main building's in no better state, as the flames claim the last of the gym's structural integrity, and the wooden building collapses into a pile of kindling. Through the blaze, May watches as Max and Blaziken stumble onto the helicopter surrounded by their allies. In a matter of seconds, it takes flight, and as Max looks back, the siblings' eyes meet over the burning remnants of their family home. And that's where we'll leave part 1.
The next 2 parts will be out before too long. Expect them shortly after the next installments of GSA.
So be sure to subscribe to Ronin, Charizard, and Plus Ultraman as well for the full story, since you never know who might appear in a connected universe.
But before we go, we want to know your thoughts on the story so far.
How do you feel about May and Max?
What malicious machination do you think Archie and Maxie have planned for their young disciples?
And do you think our heroes will be able to mend their broken bond?
Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you when the journey continues.